women in our world, especially those who have become empowered over time and have in turn worked to empower other women everywhere. So, PWL, to Partners for World Health, welcomes you to the International Women's Day celebration this evening, which will be a panel discussion to focus on empowered women who have helped to empower women in our world. But first, a few housekeeping details. We have four door prizes for you. Your name will be put in a basket, and the drawing will be held at the end of the presentation. If your name is drawn and you are here, we will make arrangements for you to receive your gift from Partners for World Health, no matter where you are in the world. Later on in the program, we will have time for questions, and we will use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen for those questions. We ask that you please refrain from using the general chat function so that we can keep this line of communication open. We have planned and practiced, and we are excited to share today's sessions with you. We ask for your patience as we navigate the transitions of the Zoom platform. As much as we can plan and prepare, sometimes the world of technology has a mind of its own, and the internet can move at different speeds. So if you become disconnected for any reason, just log back in and we will work to get you back on the session as quickly as possible. If we lose the connection altogether, we will also work to connect you and reboot the seminar. If this is if this is the case, you will be emailed with all of those instructions. Today's session is being recorded, and everyone will receive a link to the webinar recording in a follow-up email. So before I begin this program, I want to thank all of our sponsors who have been very generous to help support this International Women's Day celebration. We have had 5 businesses here in Maine: Coffee by Design, Bernstein Shore, Vero, the Malfunction, New England International Women's Club. And we want to say thank you to all of them for being so generous. In addition, we've had 5 other sponsors: Fran Gerard, Meredith Tipton, Cindy Sayer, Aimee Bizier, Leonard and Merle Nelson, and Kristen Furman Simmons, who's our digital media sponsor. So I want to say a special thank you to all of you for your commitment and your support of this event this evening. Our program will begin with a short presentation by our panelists of the great work that they are doing. If you have questions for the panelists, please put them through the Q&A, and we will address those after our discussion at the end of the program. So to set the stage, let's talk a little bit about empowered women who empower women in our world. If we think of women right here in the United States and throughout our world, we are reminded of strong women who have helped to shape our values and create our own strength so we could go out into the world and be successful. And our 2 panelists this evening are doing just this for so many women in our world. An empowered woman is someone who knows her strengths and is not afraid to embrace them. She has taken control of her life and is aware of her capabilities, and she has a sense of self-confidence and presence. She has the ability to do things or make decisions for herself. She is encouraging and open, and people feel comfortable with her. She has the ability to encourage and inspire others to reach for something better. An empowered woman is ready to take on even their own biggest dreams. To many women in our world, empowered means freedom that has no borders and is without limits, with the ability to exercise one's own choices with an assurance that her voice will always be heard. Like Alfredo in Peru, we need to continue to fight and support efforts to create conditions and opportunity for gender equality, which will promote women's empowerment. And Beatrice in Honduras, women's empowerment means that women have the power to fight for spaces of equality, to be able to work in a job under equal conditions. To Angie in the US, women's empowerment is a woman who is not afraid, who believes in herself and does not back down from a challenge. And to Ipsita in Bangladesh, women's empowerment is enabling the environment where women can raise their voices and make their own decisions and choose the life that she would want to lead. Every woman deserves to be heard. So let's begin our discussion and let me introduce to you our panelists. First, we have Tara Sher, Sharafudheen, who is a senior international development expert with over 30 years of experience at the local, national, and international levels. We welcome you here this evening. Her expertise covers infrastructure, service delivery, local development, entrepreneurship, and women's empowerment. And her current focus is on economic empowerment for women and youth and the application of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship for developing regions. She is the chair of the International Advisory Board of Azerbaijan Rural Women's Association. She has worked at the World Bank for 18 years in multiple countries in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Northern Africa. Originally from India, she attended the University of India for her undergraduate work and received her master's in public administration from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard and an MBA from the Fox School at Temple University. And she is the current chair of the International Board for the Azerbaijan Rural Women's Association. We also have with us today Ekhlas Ahmed, who was forced to flee the outbreak of the civil war in Sudan with her mother and father and three younger brothers in 2005. Her family was settled to Portland, Maine, resettled there, and for the past several years, she has been working to help resettle refugees here in Maine. She has devoted her life to helping refugees navigate the cultural differences and works outside the classroom to build bridges with the community at large and promote cultural understanding among varied groups. Originally from Darfur, Sudan, Ekhlas earned her undergraduate degree in international relations and a master's in education from the University of Southern Maine. And she is the vice president and co founder of Chance to Advance, a nonprofit organization that raises awareness in her community about the violence and needs in Darfur, as well as implements initiatives to make education more feasible for all. So we want to welcome both of you here this evening. And to begin our presentations, each one will present some information about their organization and the efforts they have done to promote empowerment for women in our world. And we shall begin with Tara. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and many thanks to Tarlan Ahmedov, who made this introduction from Azerbaijan. And I would like to start by presenting to you a unique model that was implemented in Azerbaijan that empowers rural women, especially women who are low skilled and low income. And when we talk about empowering women, I first want to make the point that these women are actually empowering me. I'm not empowering them. And you will know why when you listen to their story. I would like to now share my screen. Kristen, if that's okay. I hope you can see my screen. I'll try to go full. May take a little time. So my presentation is entitled From Whispers to Voices, Women Development and Enterprise Groups in Azerbaijan. The photos that you see are of the women who run their own businesses in Azerbaijan. And I will talk a little bit about that, how we got there. So when everybody knows, I mean, it's a known fact that women's empowerment makes sense in terms of development dividends. Because when you empower women, you empower not just them, but their families and their communities, because women give back. And one of the figures that the World Bank looked at was the loss in human capital globally due to the unequal participation of women in economic life, which is valued, the loss is valued at $162 trillion US dollars. And the loss in Azerbaijan is $31 billion. Human capital is the lifetime earnings of a working age population, and women only contribute 36% on average because they have lower earning power and higher inactivity. This story is about rural women, and rural women the world over, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Africa or in Azerbaijan, have overlapping disadvantages compared to more educated urban women. They lack opportunities to acquire skills. They have limited mobility. They cannot go for 9 to 5 jobs in the nearest city. They have limited access to networks, services, finance, and markets. And the challenges are even greater if you are less educated and less skilled and living in a rural area as a woman. So often governments come up with entrepreneurship programs and they give grants to people to start businesses, but this often doesn't work because you need customized approaches. And, yeah, and this is even more so because COVID-19 has devastated people's incomes. Now, the model that I'm talking about, it's called self-help groups. It has been implemented for over 30 years in South Asia and India, which is my home country, where I served as a senior government official in charge of districts. So here women come together as a group. They start saving collectively to start businesses. Now, group businesses enable these women to share risks because, it would be difficult for one of them to start a business and survive. And it also helps to serve as a risk diversification tool because each group has more than one business. In a rural area, it could be farming, but farming is seasonal. So in these seasons where you don't farm, they have other businesses. And you'll hear a bit more as I go into details. It also builds resilience because the group serves as a peer-to-peer network and a support system. India has world's largest self-employment program for women, and 55 million women are in these groups. And in 5 years, they have saved together $800 million and accessed loans to the tune of 25 billion. And in Kerala, which is my home state in the coast, and this is the area that Columbus was looking for. It's the Spice Coast of India before he came to America. It's 4 million women who represent 50% of all households run 34,000 businesses. This is a state that partnered with Azerbaijan to bring the model to Azerbaijan. The model now covers 60 million women in 26 countries. Here, how did it start in Azerbaijan? So a delegation from the government of Azerbaijan had an exposure visit to India, and they saw this model and they requested the government of India to provide technical support to implement it because they thought it would work in Azerbaijan. So right now we have 44 women development enterprise groups in Azerbaijan in 17 rayons. Rayons are districts or counties in the US comprising 600 women. They together own and manage 120 businesses that they started with their own funds. These cover, farm, off-farm, and non-farm activities. Now, group entrepreneurship has enabled more women to be employed at a time, and these women together have also employed around 1,400 people from their community. There's considerable demand now from women asking for this model to be scaled up across the country. Now, what exactly is the model? It's a model that looks at all the constraints that women face in starting businesses in an integrated manner. The key pillars are institution building. You build institutions for women. This is not a one-off activity. So women in a neighborhood are organized into small groups of 10 to 20 women. They meet together every week and they start saving, and now they decide how much they can save. So if you're really, if it's $3, it's $3. If it's $5, it's $5. But the main incentive is that you have to save towards an economically productive activity. And they have weekly meetings and they follow democratic governance. They elect a chair, they elect a secretary, they have savings passbooks, they track their savings, and they use these savings as seed funds for starting their businesses. And once we train them in financial management, we also then link them to other sources of credit. Then they also learned how to access markets, and we've actually trained local young people, local young girls and young men to provide them those services. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. We also do online skilling and mentoring on life skills, leadership, financial skills, digital literacy, which is absolutely important these days. It's as important as any sort of literacy, business skills. And we also encourage the women with leadership capacity to become mentors to others. One of the unique parts of the model that I'll talk about later is that they actively work for community development, each group. And they also work actively with government programs and with the private sector. Now, I'm just going to quickly show you through some photos how this is done. You see in the first photo is the group. It's in a village on the foothills of the Caucasus Mountains. I don't know if many of you know where Azerbaijan is. Azerbaijan is a country that's in the Caucasus region. It's the southern part of the Caucasus. And the Caucasus Mountains are a gateway between Asia and Europe. And Azerbaijan borders Iran, Turkey, Georgia, and Armenia. Please look it up. It's a country with immense diversity, lots of languages, lots of ethnic groups. Even I was very surprised coming from a country like India, which is very diverse, but very large. In a small country, I have not seen so much diversity. So you see the first group, they are actually, this is an election to elect their chair, and they are voting on who's to be elected. Each group is also in the lower photo. You can see that they are putting their money together, and the secretary of the group is writing in the savings book. So we actively encourage every woman to participate, and these minutes are recorded. And as of September 2020, as you know, COVID has overtaken us this year. The woman had saved around 300,000 US dollars, and which is household savings now being put to productive use. What we also saw in Azerbaijan, which was rather astonishing, having worked with this model globally, is that how fast these women started forming their businesses, even within 2 months, because the model actually is 6 months of training, 6 months of saving, and then you start your businesses. But the women were so eager to use these opportunities that they said, it doesn't matter, we won't touch our savings. We'll just get, like sewing machines, our ovens, we'll just start our businesses. Please don't hold us back, because we spent all our lives looking after our family and our children. This is something we want to do for ourselves. And so the group, as I said, have a portfolio of businesses, and you can see some of the businesses they have. And they now want to expand and start the first women's cooperative in the country. And this is the customized enterprise ecosystem that we built up, is these young people who are graduates in rural areas, but who don't have jobs. We train them to become community business promoters. We've set up 4 business incubators in rural areas. And these young people, it's a business incubator where the women don't have to leave their residences. These young people come to them and help them incubate and develop their businesses. And this has created kind of a new dynamic in rural areas where the young people and older women are coming together to help each other. And this is, I think, the very unique part of the model, because we believe that if the woman has no voice in community affairs, she cannot have voice in the marketplace as a businesswoman. So we actively encourage the woman to participate in community engagement. So how do they do that? They create a vulnerability map of their entire community. They look at every aspect of it, from health to education to environment, and they'll decide which is the one thing that they want to address. A lot of them have looked at the environment, and some of them have started private trash collection services. Even the municipality could not get people to pay for trash collection. And now actively local governments are asking for their support. They look after the elderly. You see in the first photo, they are visiting an elderly woman who's extremely happy to see them. And in the lower photo, they're actually having a health camp for women. During the pandemic, they have been very active in COVID-19 response in their communities, educating people, taking care of the elderly, stitching masks. So they're very well respected in the community. and the community sees them as having this group in their community as a part of public good. So in this model was piloted under the government of Azerbaijan, the Ministry of Agriculture's project called the Rural Investment Project, which ended in September 2019. And in November of 2018, the first organization representing rural women, farmers and entrepreneurs in Azerbaijan was registered, the Azerbaijan Rural Women's Association. It's a bottom-up organization of all the women's groups. And in 2 years of its existence has already received 2 awards from government. And very recently, just 2 days ago, we received the happy news that for International Women's Day, the president of Azerbaijan has awarded the chair of the Azerbaijan Rural Women's Association with a prestigious state honor called the Progress Medal. This shows the transformative impact that this model has had in just 3 years. Now, the Azerbaijan Rural Women's Association serves as a network, as an advocacy group for this, and gives them a voice and a seat at the table. They currently work with several ministries listed below and also with many international partners. And in the end, if you ask me what is the impact that this model has had, I think it's important that you hear from the women themselves. I'm going to stop sharing and then switch to a video, just a 2-minute video of the woman talking about the impact that this has had on their lives. If you will just bear with me while I pull up the video. Kristen, let me know if the sound is okay. I did not see that choice that you asked me to make. So I'm going to play it now.
Güclü olun. Aşa bilmədiyiniz əngəl yoxdur. Mən qadınlara onu demək istəyirəm ki, siz böyük qüvvəsiniz. Siz gücünüzdən istifadə edin, qorxmayın. Özünüzü əməyə alışdırın, evdə oturmayın. Hamınızın pay torpağı var. Kənddə yoxsul qadınlar da var, varlı qadınlar da var. Birləşin, gücünüzü göstərin. O kişilər görsün ki, qadınlar güclüdür. Mən bütün xanımlara güclü, qüvvətli, yaxşı işlərlə məşğul olmağı arzulayıram. Mən xanım idim, hər gün eyni işlər, təkrar işlər, eyni ev işləri. Çox dəyişdi, həddindən artıq çox dəyişdi. Artıq mən özümdə bir məsuliyyət, bir inam, bir güc hiss edirəm. Amma bir il öncəyə baxanda elə bir deyildim. İlk dəfə Kənd Qadınlar Assosiasiyasının nümayəndəsi Yemətaş xanım bizdə kəndə gəldi. Görüş keçirdi və dedi ki, istəyərsinizmi kənddə qadın qrupu yaransın bir dənə. Həyatımızda dəyişdi. Bu kiçik biznes bizə qazanc gətirdi. Əlavə biz işlərimizi də qurduq, salon yaratdıq, şirkət qəbulləri. İndi istəyirik ki, əlavə yenə də maldarlıqla da məşğul olmaq. Biznesimizi yüksəldik. Bayaqdan istəyirik özümüz dolanaq ailəmiz, amma indi istəyirik ki, böyük biznesimiz olsun. Bəli, özümdə məsuliyyət hiss edirəm. Hər səhər dururam, işimin dalınca gedirəm. Artıq mən, necə deyim, kənddə məşhurlaşmışam. Əvvəllər heç kimi tanımırdı. Artıq mənim öz sənətim var. Mən buna məşhur olarkən özümü daha elə bir nəsə nailiyyət əldə etmiş kimi hiss edirəm. Həm də istəyirəm ki, sosial sahədə kənddə tutaq ki, kimsə kasıbdır, kiminsə xəstəsi var, kiməsə nəsə ehtiyacı var, ona kömək edir. Çox razıyam. Yoldaşlarımı görməyəndə darıxıram. İstəyirəm ki, yanımda olsunlar. Qrupa alışmışam da bir yerdə işləyirik. Çox dəyişib həyatım.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. How interesting. We're going to have some good discussion about that.
My name is Özgür. I was born and raised in Turkey mostly.
Sorry.
My career started when I was 15.
So I want to bring Ekhlas up. Hi. So welcome. We're glad you were able to join us this evening, and we would love to hear what you have to share.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, Tara, for sharing that wonderful presentation. Thank you to Tarlin for introducing me to this group. Welcome to everybody. My name is Ekhlas Ahmed. I am originally from Sudan. Portland, Maine has been my home for almost 13 years now. I am someone who considers herself amongst the lucky ones, to live here in Maine, but also to have the opportunity kind of to start my life here in Maine after my family made the really difficult decision to move from our home, and because of the genocide that is still happening today in Darfur. So it has not been an easy struggle. Has not been an easy journey. A lot of struggles along the way, trying to find myself here in Maine, call it home, which has been one of the biggest struggles for me, but also trying to find a place where I can feel like I belong. So I'm gonna share a little bit about my story later, but for now I will share a little bit about my nonprofit, um, Chance to Advance, which is a really new nonprofit. It's only 2.5 years old, but in the 2 years and a half, we have done a lot of amazing work that I'm gonna share with you guys. I just need to know how to share my screen or be able to see what you guys are seeing, because I can't.
Ekhlas, this is tech support on for you. The share screen is on. If you hit the green button at the bottom, you should be able to go.
Perfect. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see. So yeah, that's my story. Like I said, I'm Ekhlas. I've lived here, and this, just to give you a little bit of a background, Chance to Advance started really because of the lack of organizations like Chance to Advance, because Maine is a state that is growing in its population, and a lot of the new Mainers that are coming to Maine are coming from countries from all over the world. They're coming from Sudan, from Congo, from Burundi, from Azerbaijan. We have a lot of richness in Maine, but those richness you don't get to see them often. So that's one of the reasons why Chance to Advance was born, because of this lack of representation and lack of seeing who are Mainers, especially who are Mainers today. So Chance to Advance, we believe that diversity makes us stronger. It's a nonprofit that started to highlight and to promote the diversity that exists here in Maine, and also highlight the diversity that exists beyond Maine from all the countries that I just mentioned. Our mission is to provide platform for individuals to share positive stories of their journey, of their struggle, and of their resiliency, especially women and especially girls, to share their story, because we believe that it's really one of the best ways of healing is by sharing your story and finding that commonality. Our vision is that we believe together our differences make us a beautiful community. I'm not going to read through our whole entire vision. It's on our website, which I'm going to share the website detail in a little bit. For the past few years, Chance to Advance has created a lot of great work in Portland Public School system, working in different settings to educate not just our students, but our staff, our educators, our administrators about the diversity that exists, not only through numbers, but actually sharing people's stories through, sharing people's stories and actually having pictures of those people. Who are those people? They're not just a number, but they are stories that we want people to know about. So for the past 3 years, we have created a project called Celebrating Diversity or Celebrating Maine. We started in the beginning by sharing by making a calendar. The first year calendars were called Celebrating Africa, which featured many of the African countries that have recently came to Maine. And in the calendar, each month, students were able to learn more about Mainers who are living here, their stories and how they're contributing to the success and well-being of Maine. So that was 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago, we also made a different one called Celebrating Diversity in Maine, which was, the idea was the same thing, that we will continue to highlight more women and men and children and youth who are living in Maine, who have businesses here in Maine, who are contributing to Maine's economy. And all of these calendars have been out here in the greater Maine area to represent the new faces, as I was saying. And in 2019, we were lucky enough to have an amazing partner, Catholic Charity Office of Refugee Resettlement. And with the team of Catholic Charity and celebrating diversity calendars were born, we were able to raise about $8,000 that we have already this year given to three amazing women here in Maine who are going to school here in Maine, from all the Portland public school system and South Portland. And we are gonna continue doing that going forward to pave the way for girls and pave the way for women who are living and working here in Maine. So I'm really excited for that. And we have this 2021 calendars who came out just right as the pandemic hit. So we still have many of those calendars for donation if people wanted some calendars to read about the wonderful stories of refugees, of immigrants that are living here in Maine. We're happy to send a copy. Yeah, so that's some of the work that we have been doing. We also do some work outside of Maine, chance to advance this work in, so far we've only been in Sudan because as I said earlier, it's only 2 years old. And we hope to continue doing this, empowering girls in all over the world. But this year, I was lucky enough that I went to my home country of Sudan by providing tutoring services and providing books and pencils and all the educational tools that Sudan girls or Sudanese girls really need in order for them to continue their education, because as we all know, education is one of those barriers or those areas that we need to continue working on, especially for women and for girls. So this just happened just two months ago. And yeah, a lot of tutoring services through CTA, and we hope that we can continue doing that, even on an electronic form through Zoom or through like other platforms that are going to help us continue helping students learn English, especially in other countries around the world. So yeah, that's a little bit about CTA. And as I was saying, on our website, you will find that we have a flyer if you would like the Celebrating Diversity calendars in May 2021. We'll be happy to send some out. So thank you so much. And that's our website.
Thank you very much for sharing with us your new nonprofit, Chance to Advance. That's really terrific. So as we have listened to these great speakers this evening, let's ask a few questions here. And one of them is Tara here, coming back online.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as we talk about empowerment and what it means to us and as individuals, and our lives have taken many different paths, lots of different things happen to us that would change our lives, and we're influenced in so many different ways along the road. And we don't necessarily, we start out on one road and we end up on a completely different road. I know that's happened in my situation with the development of Partners for World Health. And so just thinking about that, what were some of those influences that led you down this road to where you are, to where both of you are? So Tara, please address that.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for the opportunity to talk about this, because not many people ask about this, what the journey is, right? Before you can achieve this level of involvement. I come from a family, in the Indian system. I come from a state which is very unusual in the sense, like Kerala is a state which has communities and groups which are matriarchal and matrilinear. So in that sense, I have been very advantaged to have been born a woman in my home state of Kerala. And my mother's community is matriarchal. So there's never been a point in my life, though that's not the story of the rest of India, where I've been told that as a woman or as a girl child, I'm any less. I was expected to do as well or even better because I was the eldest child in the family. So, like my brothers and sisters had to look up to me. And so having parents that believe in you and value you as a person, that makes a huge difference to your attitude. And I was born in a family on my mother's side, because I was very close to my mother's family, where I've seen whole generations of very strong women. My great grandmother, who lived to be 108, was a widow at 26. And she brought up 3 kids, managed all the properties. A lot of pressure in a traditional society to remarry again because she was holding so much property. There were men who wanted to marry her. From the age of 26 to the age of 108, she lived alone. And she managed properties, she bequeathed them to her children, then made new investments, new properties. So she's been like an ideal to me. My grandmother married at 16, was a complete housewife, but when my grandfather died, suddenly started managing everything and then just became the woman that she was meant to be at the age of 60. So my mother, she runs an NGO, a very successful one, of 5,000 women. She's now in her early 80s, still very active. So I come from a tradition of very, very strong women, and that makes a huge difference. And my father also comes from, my grandfather on my mother's side was a municipal commissioner or leader for 30 years of his life. So whenever I visited my grandfather, I always saw him involved with the community. My father was head of one of the largest trade unions of agriculture workers in the world. So, I mean, like community service is the milk that I was brought up. I just thought it was natural. I started working with the community when I was 12. My mother used to run, empowerment classes for women who lived in slums I grew up in Delhi, in the capital of India. So I used to go with her and I used to do a little bit of secretarial work for her. So it just came natural to me that wherever I am, I want to give back to the community. I came here as a student and I started serving, shut-ins in Philadelphia. I went to school in Philly. And I realized the epidemic of loneliness in America. It's not that, the houses looked okay, much better than the country where I came from, but people inside were so lonely. I used to take food to shut-ins working with the church, but it was not food they wanted. They just wanted to talk. So wherever you are, you can be of value, and the community gives so much to you, you need to give back. So this is how I got involved.
This is how you ended up where you are today, which is incredible and wonderful. And that's very interesting about the matriarchal society in which you grew up as compared to a very patriarchal society in Sudan, for example, and many other places where we're finding women that are still at home and taking care of families. So in terms of your experience, Ekhlas, what were some of those influences that led you down to this path, having grown up in more of a patriarchal society?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish my journey was similar, but it's the complete opposite. It has been a daily struggle from the beginning of my childhood until today. Being a recent graduate, even going to school was something that I think I only talked about it with my friends. I don't think it's a topic that even in my family we talk about often, because they themselves, I don't think, grew up talking about the importance of education and the importance of educating even one child or one woman. Um, so that has been my reality for so long. I am also the oldest in my family. I have three younger brothers. I'm the only girl in my family, which makes things even more complicated. But yeah, I noticed that when we first came to America in 2007, I went through high school here, which was awesome. And the second that I graduated, nobody talked about college. Everybody was talking about when are we gonna, find you a husband. Even if they're not in America, can we ship you back to Sudan so you can get married there? Um, to me, I think I got to where I am today because of the amazing mentors that I have had since high school. um, the amazing examples that I see around me that are not in my family, but somehow inspired me to want to be like them, to follow in their footsteps. So I graduated high school and I didn't get married. I went on to SMCC, which is a community college here in Maine. And when I graduated with my associate degree, they're like, okay, you got what you wanted. Now can you get married? um, but I was far away from that. And that wasn't even one of the things that I was thinking about. I was just 22 years old, trying to figure out who I am, trying to figure out what do I even want to study. But even those conversations were not coming at the dinner table, because if you talked about that, it's like, it's not as important. So why are you talking about that? So even like what I wanted to study or my majors that I focused on in college were all because of television, actually, watching American TV and seeing that there were a lot of women who had amazing and big positions. They were changing the world. Many of them, of course, didn't look like me. They were not, a Sudanese Black woman from Africa who had this position, but still inspired me to say that it's possible. So I went and graduated from the University of Maine, not even too long ago, 2018. I graduated, majoring in education, mainly because I just saw that many girls in Maine here didn't have a teacher that could actually sit down and have that conversation with them, a teacher that maybe had, walked on similar footsteps and same path. So I decided, mainly not because I loved being a teacher, but because I saw the need of it in my community, and seeing that in order for us to kind of talk about the change, we have to be that change. We have to do things that we're not comfortable doing. And I found a lot of comfort being uncomfortable. Actually, I found a lot of comfort, and I'm really happy that I chose to go a different route than even what my parents have expected of me. Maybe they expected me to just be a housewife, or maybe inside they did want me, or do still want me, to continue and still go to school and start a nonprofit. But it's hard for them to find the language, because I think it's also a trauma that they're still healing and trying to cover from.
Interesting. So it's interesting that you shared about being comfortable in being uncomfortable at that moment. And you also, Tara, shared earlier in your presentation about how the fact that these women, when you think of yourself as an empowered woman, it's really that those women are really making you feel empowered, that not necessarily were you empowered. So it's interesting that we're we become strong because of the choices and some of the different things that happen to us. And then we share this with other people, and they in turn make us even stronger, make us able to go out and do these things, just like what both of you have done. So education is clearly a factor in empowerment. And but what other tools or strategies do you identify, strategies of empowerment would you identify as critical when you look at that term and the meaning of it? What other strategies?
I think I was just talking about this. I think a little bit. I think a very important strategy is to uh, have an example. Have an example. I think it's something that have been and it still is contributing to the work that I'm doing. Is having a group of women around you that you also see as women that can help you in this process. So not doing it alone, having a group system, a support system, not necessarily all women, but a support system I think is crucial to have, because the work that we do, the work that I do, I know it's not easy. It is extremely difficult. It takes time, it takes energy, it's emotional, it takes a toll on someone's mental health. Um, so all of these things that we uh, as much as we are helping people, we're also human. So therefore, taking time for just debriefing what process things that are happening in your life are really important. So yeah, I want to say just having a very strong support system.
Yes, great suggestion and a great strategy to focus in on. Tara, what would you suggest?
I think there are several factors to empowerment. Education is one, but more than education, I would say skilling, because you need not have a formal master's or a PhD, but to be skilled in what you want to do, right? And to be able to do it. I think the main sign of empowerment is the ability. I mean, I call my presentation whispers to voices, having voices, but voices to choices is the next phase, is the ability to make choices and to act on it. A lot of women all over the world don't have that ability. Like they have dreams that they either suppress or they're not able to take forward. So besides education, I think the building on your own strengths, giving women the opportunities to build on their own strengths, because the model that I talked about is women empowering themselves. It's not us empowering them. It's their own money, their own skills that they're testing every day. So it's very important to have that. And of course, a network and a support system that Ekhlas mentioned is important. Not just mentoring, a support system, a sisterhood that makes you feel confident, right? Where nobody's judging you. I mean, you are yourself and you're valued for what you are. So I think that's hugely, hugely empowering. And I've seen this in these women every day. You saw in the video, like they talk about like, now I have a profession, I'm respected, I feel like somebody, right? And you can see, and that was just a group that was a year old. If you see them now, the transformation is even bigger. So this is what I meant. Those women inspire me and give me strength. So, we empower each other.
Mhm. That's very important. So what kind of advice would you give to young women who find themselves in the routine of just trying to fit into society? And what kind of advice would you give to them to help them speak their minds and to share their concerns?
I think Ekhlas, you want to go first? I see that you're dying to say something. Go ahead.
I was just because it's just such an important question today more than ever. What advice do we give to the next future leaders? It's not even a question anymore that women are going and are the future leaders of this whole globe, not just here in the United States, but we see it everywhere. We see it. I just witnessed this, the women of Sudan who led a revolution that took a whole 9 months, a whole year. Women and girls were on the street fighting for our former president to resign because he has been such a bad president for the past 30 years. And people in the beginning didn't believe that they were going to do it, and they have proved so many people wrong by going to the street every single day, fighting and demanding for justice and for equality. And many of those women were young girls who said, we deserve a better future and we are gonna work for it, and we're not gonna be silenced anymore. The advice that my mentors continue to give me today is that you need to believe it's possible. You know, we don't talk about that often. Whatever it is that girls are trying to accomplish, if it's starting a nonprofit, or if it's becoming a doctor, or if it's even being that first person to graduate in her family, that it is possible. You know, the road is not easy. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible. So being yourself, I think, to me, what has helped me, and the advice that helped me, was that I didn't need to do anything to fit in. Like, I myself was enough. That I don't need to take off my hijab so that I can feel better and fit in a society that was, 100% Christian, or 100% white. As a Black woman, I didn't need to go change my skin color to fit in. Just being who I am, I was enough. And I think that message resonates today more than ever. We are witnessing a lot of change in the country, in not just in America but around the globe, for people to say, be your authentic self, be who you are, and know that you yourself is enough. So those are the two advice I think that I would give the next future leaders today, is to live her authentic self, and she's enough. She does not need to change to fit in. She already is where she belongs.
From my side, what I would like to say is to dream big, and to believe in yourself, and to take chances. Don't sit on the fence, take chances, make mistakes, learn from it, move on, go forward, because you will become the person you were meant to be. And do things that make you happy. You don't have to be a leader, but do things that make you happy and feel productive. I think that's the advice.
I think that, believing in something that it is possible is, and encouraging, especially encouraging young women about, you can do this. I would always say to people heading into nursing school or medical school that it's 3 semesters or it's 10 semesters. And when you finish a semester, then you go on to the next one. So it's actually possible to achieve all of these things. You just set up the plan and do it. And sometimes the plan changes along the way, or sometimes there's no plan, but just keep moving forward and stepping over every bump in the road until you finally reach that. You finally reach that. So I think that's a really positive thing to share with women in Maine and women in our country, and women throughout the world, that things are possible, and being that person so that they see that the success that people have had, that they can do it too. Just like what has happened with the Azerbaijan Rural Women's Association, and working in education in Sudan as well, to promote education for children and girls. So we've had some pretty big challenges here in our country. So, what are these challenges each of you might see as priorities here in the US and around the world? So what would be the priorities coming out of, here we are trying to advance women and speak up for women. So, and we're in the US, and what are those priorities here that we really need to advance to make a difference out there in the world?
Elizabeth, can you repeat, because we lost the connection for a little while?
Sure.
So we heard the last part.
So we were just talking about, believing that something's possible, and that creating a plan and reinforcing young women and young girls to reach for something, because you will get there. You just have to keep walking down that road and going over the bumps and believing in yourself and knowing that you do have the strength to carry it through. But in our country, we have a lot of challenges, as you are well aware, in the last several years here in our country. So when you think about empowerment, what do you see as the priorities here in the United States and around the world? And what should we really be focusing in on now to help really move women forward?
Ekhlas, you want to go?
Who wants to jump in?
I think you're muted, Ekhlas. Do you want to go?
You need to, okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You can go. I'm still thinking, so you can go.
Okay. I think, you know, having lived in the US for the last 20 plus years and feeling very much part of the ecosystem here, I think the country has gone through really difficult period. And I think women have a role. Women are peacemakers, women are community builders. Women are the ones who can come together. I am not talking about political divides or racial divides or economic divides, because women have the ability to step forward and make a community, right? So starting with where we are, the small gestures that can bring communities together, whether it's around common interests, working for an area in which you live, or sharing food. You know, there are three things I always think that bring people together, irrespective of differences. One is food, another is sports, and then the arts. So at the World Bank, where you have people from 180 countries plus, I used to run an event for 10 years called the Celebration of Cultures, just celebrating ourselves, celebrating our diversity, looking for the positives instead of the negatives. It's always easy to see the negatives. And when you meet people one-on-one, I feel that people respond, right? So I think women have a great role to play in America. I think this is the age for women to start building community, to start building a country.
Very good point. Ekhlas.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure. I would definitely agree with you. I think that it's important for us in the United States to focus on connecting on a human, just as humans. I feel like for the longest time, well, since I came to this country, I sense, I think Tara was saying earlier, sense of emptiness. I think that we don't connect more. You know, there's something that when I go back home to Sudan, I just feel like there is a sense of love for one another. Regardless, there's so many tribes in Sudan, so many different tribes, so many different languages spoken, so many different skin color shades. So it's not about race, it's not about religion, it's about humanity. And I think we need to come together as humanity in America. We need to work on this in our country. We need to believe in women. You know, women need to believe in women, but men need to believe in women also. Um, this is one of the biggest areas I think America struggles with. We see it in almost every aspect. We see it in education. We see it, we see it in the workforce in itself. How women are getting so much paid, so much less. So this is an area that we need to work on in our country. That equality, that we need to pay our women and men the same. And we need to work on healing. There is so much trauma in our country. So if we're um, trying to talk about moving the country forward, moving a community forward, people must continue discussing all of the hurt that they have faced in the past and that they're still facing. I think there's so much trauma in America, and it's about time for us to talk about the causes of these trauma issues. What are the causes, and how can we find a way to heal? Because without that, we cannot even begin to discuss the other important issues that we have.
Great answer. You know, when I'm just listening to you, in order to get to where we all are today, I'm sure that we all had some challenges. And let's see here. Just a reminder to everybody out there that if you do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A so that we can.
I see. I have two questions, Elizabeth, that I would like to get to after we finish our conversation, because they're very interesting questions. Sorry,
Yes.
not now. No, I'll wait for it. I'm just saying that there are questions coming in. I just wanted to let you know.
Yes, and we can take some of those questions if you want right now.
Sure.
So Kristen.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be participating with this. We do have a wonderful question from Fran Gerard tonight, who says, fascinating subject, Tara. What is the most unusual business started in the Azerbaijan Women's Association?
Thank you for this question. I think I would like to talk a little bit about Azerbaijan, but also my country, India, where women are, it's a 20-year, 30-year model. So in Azerbaijan, it's 3 years. When women start businesses, especially rural women who are not businesswomen, we are teaching them to become entrepreneurs, to take risks, right? So it's very important that we start with things that women are comfortable with, right? So it often happens that women in rural areas want to start with baking, with farming, because it's something that they feel comfortable. If I went to them and I told them, let's start, like a business where we will start assembling computers, nobody's going to start a business. So what we see is that within a year, as soon as they understand what business means, what financial management means, what's taking risks means, what taking a credit which you can afford to pay back, how to invest money, they rapidly started taking more risks, especially when the young people came in to provide them business development services. Now I see them starting to branch out. For instance, one group is doing commercial cleaning services. Another group wants to start homestays in tourist areas and to design tourist circuits. So they are starting to branch out a little. But if you want to talk about unusual, I would go to my home state of Kerala, because there in 20 years, the women are running the entire metro system. The subway system is completely run by women. And we have women, as I said, putting computers together. And Elizabeth, this may be of interest to you. They run an entire home healthcare business as a service, but on a fee basis. Kerala has 100% literacy, and we don't have enough jobs. So if you see, and Elizabeth, I was mentioning to you that all the nurses from India are from my home state of Kerala. The nurses you met when you were in the Middle East are from my home state, because there is not enough work. So we have very good human health indicators. So we live to be 80 plus. My grandmother, 95 plus, my great grandmother, 108. So it's not just that I may have good genes. People generally live better because they eat better and they are educated. So they're very careful about their health. Now, everybody has got parents at home who are very old, but they don't want to leave them in like old care homes, because that's not traditional in our culture. So they have started a home care business where every month they will visit your parents. They will do all the, doctors train them. These are, science graduates, and they will do all the pre-checks. Are you pre-diabetic? How's your BP? Are you having early signs of dementia? They will load this onto a cloud platform. So you are sitting in America and can, if your parents agree, access the medical records. And this is actually saving because I was finance secretary to my state, I manage the state's budget. It is saving the state so much of money because of early warning about health risks that the population is facing. And we have a lot of non-communicable diseases, which, as you know, can be controlled through lifestyle changes. So these are some of the unusual things. They are running fishermen's cooperatives. They are running tourism bus service. And during disasters and floods, they were an army. They fed the whole state. They ran soup kitchens day in and day out. They lost their own homes, but they were all out doing something. So these are some of the unusual ways women give back to their communities.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when you're chatting about the home health industry in your part of the country in India, it's a great need in Sudan as well because of lack of access for women, children, and men as well. They don't have access to good health care. And I could see a business starting over there, a women's business on community health and teaching things, such basic things about monitoring blood pressure and diabetes and diet. And those kind of things can really impact, the life of people and the life of the family.
Even in Azerbaijan, because in rural areas you don't have the access that you have in urban areas. So I think universally across the world, this is needed.
Yeah.
Sure, for sure.
And even for pandemics, Elizabeth, women can serve as like early warning systems, right? Because they generally know everybody in the community.
And they're one of the projects that we have started here at Partners for World Health in 3 countries in Africa is Project 10,000 to educate pregnant women about the complications of pregnancy. It's a simple thing. It's not you don't need to go to a 4-hour lecture to learn about what are the really significant complications. And if something happens then they'll go to the hospital in advance. So there are so many different things that people can do that do not necessarily have to be, you don't have to be a nurse, you don't have to be a doctor to do that, but you can learn some of those basic things and then provide that communication. And knowledge, just like we've been talking about in education, empowers people, empowers women. The more knowledge they have, then so many more women are going to survive their pregnancy, and so many more children are going to survive. So an important topic. So what was like the biggest risk that you had to take in order to get to where you are today? What was the big risk? Anyone would like to jump in?
I think for me, one of the biggest risks that I took in my life even was to how do I put it in words? Was to do things that are outside of my cultural norms, not to follow traditions. And that for me, that is a huge risk, not to follow traditions of my mother, of my grandmother, of my aunties, of my uncles. Not to follow tradition was one of the biggest risks I think I took. And and just to be rebellious against that and to say no. I think that we are I was, and still until today, I'm really afraid of disappointing my parents or disappointing my community, the Sudanese community that lives here, or the Sudanese community that follows me from back home, because they're not a group of people that are used to new ideas and new change. So for me, being that person who was breaking a tradition that has been going for centuries was huge. And I still get nervous. Even in my work today, I still get nervous because I don't know how it's going to affect my relationship with them. But that is the risk that I'm taking, because I know that I'm following a passion. And I know that there are some girls who are going through the situation that I'm going through that need someone like Ekhlas, so that they can see, okay, it is possible. And at the end of the day, maybe my parents will one day come along this journey with me.
Mm.
I mean, I think along similar lines, I think the biggest risk for me as a woman was to be, not afraid to stand out, right, against the norm, right? Though I'm brought up on my mother's side in a matriarchal society, it's not so in my father's side, and it's not so in the rest of India. So this is, my environment was not conducive, right, to the way I was brought up. And for me, what was natural was looked upon as not so natural on the part of a woman. So at the age of 20, I was in charge of a district with 6.8 million people. That was my first job. And the first person I arrested was a well-known smuggler because, you know, the way I had been brought up, I believed I was going to change the world, right? So I was threatened, right? And people warned me that don't open your door, somebody may throw acid on your face. So at that time, I was so young and so bold that I didn't even understand the risks that I was running. And maybe I was just lucky to have survived, right? You know, I had to, fire on rioting crowds and, things like that. But I think the biggest risk that is to be okay to be different. Your friends may turn against you because they may find you awkward because you stick to your beliefs and you pay for them. And so be prepared to pay for them because I think in the end, you need to look at the mirror and respect yourself because then you can't do what you do if you don't respect yourself.
How true. How
Elizabeth, we have a couple more questions coming in the Q&A, so let's jump in. I want to encourage everyone who's out in the audience, if you have questions, now is the time to put them in that Q&A section so that we can make sure we get to everyone tonight before the end of this fantastic seminar. So we have another question from Jackie Catabriga, who asks the question of Tara. What do you find to be the biggest hurdle for women's business groups? Do cultural norms limit the business possibilities they can develop?
I think that's a very interesting question because I think women have not just economic exclusions, but social and cultural exclusions, even sometimes spatial exclusion, because you don't have the same opportunities if you are in a rural area, which tends to be more traditional. So of course, there are cultural norms that limit women. So how do you get around this, right? Because Azerbaijan is, you have educated women on average, they're all have gone to school, but it's still a traditional society. It's, a traditional Islamic society overall. So especially in certain areas are more traditional than the others. But I think it's important that here, women support each other. For instance, the groups, because they include young women and older women, the young women have the freedom to go out, to travel, to sell products, to be in markets, to hold exhibitions, because they go as a group. So it's not frowned upon. And the second thing is that when we start mobilizing, we mobilize the community first. We don't go and talk to the woman in isolation. We talk to the men and the women together, right? And so we explain to the men what we want to do and that what we are going to do will benefit the community. And for me, surprisingly, not a single community in these 14 districts or counties did any man at any point say that we are going to be against this because our women are not allowed to do this or allowed to do that. Instead, what they told me was that our sense of community is dying because young people are leaving our villages. We no longer have that sense of anything you do to bring that sense of community back is something that we will support. So yes, cultural norms are an issue and women had to face it. And if you ask what is the single most issue, it's often access to finance. Because when they go to banks, they're not treated with respect. And many bankers don't find them to be bankable. Even though, if you know Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner from Bangladesh, who first proved that even poor women together as a group are eminently bankable. And if you look at all the studies, women are 98%, are payback of all loans, but still they don't get money. So the World Bank has calculated 1.3 trillion is the funding gap for women businesses. So this is one of the things that we need to change. And this is the same story in Azerbaijan. That's why we tell women, save yourself, start your business. Because then you are proud, it's your money, it's not somebody's freebie that you're using. And believe me, that gives women immense strength. And when even $1 is their own, they are very worried about how it's invested.
That's right. Ekhlas, would you like to address that question? Or maybe, Kristen, you could repeat it again.
Certainly. So the question was specifically in regards to some of the biggest hurdles for women's business groups, and speaking specifically to the cultural norms that may limit business possibilities that can develop.
Yeah, I think you said it. You said it all. I mean, for me personally, I just want to just emphasize on that last part that you talked about, which is, not having the financial needs to start women businesses. This is something I see in my community on a daily basis until today, is that they don't get it from not only from the banks, but they don't even get it from their own husband or their own fathers to start businesses, because there's that fear of becoming too powerful. This thing that we have in many of the Sudanese culture that I see, that how dare you be successful, but more successful than me as a man. So a lot of females and female businesses in Sudan suffer because of that lack of finances and having the opportunity to have freedom to start one's business with her own money. So that is something that I see often, and I hope we continue to address this issue because it's a huge one.
Kristen, what else do we have in the question?
Certainly. Actually, this is a question for all of our panelists. This is from Joshua Passarelli. He asked the question, do you have any thoughts on how to best recruit men to the mission of empowering women?
I think men have a great role in empowering women. You start with your own home, your own sisters, your mothers. Notice when they're not treated equally, right? When they don't have, and make space for them to talk about their dreams. I mean, like your mother may be, 40 or 50, maybe she just brought up the family, maybe all her life she wanted to do something, make it possible for her to do this. And when you look around in society, look for possibilities to help. For instance, when we trained young people to come and support the women's businesses, a lot of the young people who came forward were young men. So because this is their community, it was their mothers, sisters, aunts. The great thing about a rural this, and maybe many years back, small town America, is that everybody knows everybody, and then everybody is a family, right? It often happens that when you meet up and you realize you're from the same small town or college, that itself gives you a sense of community and identity. So these young men came forward, and it's not that big. And I also saw that when you come in as a man to empower women, you will gain a lot in return, because these young people actually were looking for jobs. And I think it was fantastic. At the age of 20, you learn the ins and out of business, teaching these women, and you then go on to start businesses yourself. And you feel empowered, because I think young people, they want to be useful to their community. It's not Generation X or Y is selfish. No, young people want to be seen as useful. If you don't see them as useful and you treat them, they will turn out that way. But if you give them an opportunity, they always want to be of use. And I find young men in particular are looking to be of use to the community. And why not to do it by empowering women? I hope, Joshua, I've answered your question. Ekhlas, you want to go?
Great question.
Yeah, I think it's such a great question. And my contribution to that is that I think in order for us to recruit more men, we need to continue putting women and girls in leadership positions, so that men can see that women are capable. So brothers can see their sisters being, businesswomen and successful businesswomen. I think that's one way to continue recruiting men, is by putting women, not just in the kitchen, so that we're changing that mentality that is that the girl only belongs in that one place. It's her position is in the kitchen. But by putting women and girls out there in all different leadership position, I think that automatically, without even having to recruit men, they will join the circle because they see my sister is capable of running that nonprofit. I have no doubt. I want to help. But also, I would agree also to include them as a part of the conversation. I feel like oftentimes, for me especially in my in my organization, it tends to be more women than men. But we thought about it the other day. We were like, but we never actually intentionally ask men to join. So we need to intentionally ask men to join our group so they can hear our discussions, hear our suffering also. I think this is an important conversation that we don't talk about when recruiting men. I think they hear about women and girls suffrage, but they actually never heard those stories themselves, from survivors or from women that are currently going through it. So including them and intentionally asking them to be at the table and a part of the conversation is important.
So I have another question. What would you consider your greatest success in your organization, in your greatest success in what you've been doing?
I think for me is what I call is unleashing the, we talk about alternate energy, unleashing the alternate energy of women for society, for their own good. I think that's what I call my greatest success. This is what I want to do going forward. And I think helping women across the world will make the world a better place. And I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi here, who said, be the change that you want to see, right? So you have to go out and make the world that you want to see. It's not, somebody's not going to serve it to you on a plate.
That's right. That's right. Great answer. Unleashing the ultimate energy for women. Ekhlas.
For sure.
Greatest success.
I think one of the greatest success, or one of the things that I have truly been proud of, is that I have finally been able to speak my truth. I think that oftentimes women are silenced by men in their family, silenced by other women in their family, silenced by their friends, silenced by society. And I think one of the biggest success that I've been able to do is that I have been able to speak rather than to be silent. I speak about the journey of being able to live in a multicultural society, be able to finding what is self-identity even means for someone who lived in 3 different places her whole life, practices a religion that is not common, that is usually looked at as a threat in America. Being able to speak a language that you often don't hear, such as Arabic. So all of these different components of my identity that people look down upon is something that I use to empower my own self and to use it as a strength rather than to let others silence me or kind of take me away from who I'm supposed to be. So that's something I'm really proud of, is that I have stayed true to myself. And I think Tara was saying earlier that that's when I see myself in the mirror, I give myself respect for not letting other people take me into a different route. And I feel a lot of when my students I teach, when I was teaching last year, many of the students would come to me, many of the girls would skip lunch and come to my classroom to have lunch with me. And the first thing they always say to me is that, Miss Ahmed, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher like you. Or like, I want to wear my hijab like you do next time. So those really small comments that make me feel like I'm doing the right thing, makes me feel like I have done something good and I should be proud of that.
Yes, you should. And you've made a difference in many of those girls' lives because you have a voice, because you spoke up. So we have a
Thank you.
few more questions.
We do. We have two more questions. This one comes, the second to last comes from Judith Parkhill, who's actually asking a question of both of our panelists tonight. She says, I'm interested in the role of mentors. Can you tell us more about your own mentors and how you incorporate mentors into your programs?
I think it's very important to have mentors, especially for girls or even for boys to look up to mentors. As I mentioned, the greatest mentors in my life, not that they were consciously mentoring me, but because I saw the way they lived their lives, I was mentored in the process. Like I told you, my great grandmother, a young widow of 26, living all her life alone for another till the age of 108, managing three young daughters, in not giving up. A lot of society trying to drive her to go a certain way, but stubbornly holding on, and in the end, winning respect. So, and my own grandmother, my mother, who, when she was pregnant with me, went home for the delivery, started an organization that still survives today. That I actually feel proud that she wasn't just thinking about me and her pregnancy. She thought about what she could do for women while she was there. So so I think everybody can be a mentor. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes you are mentored by people whom you thought are not incapable, or you don't look at them as formal mentors. Like the woman who asked me when I was a county commissioner and I was visiting a certain area, and she asked me, like, an old woman, she asked me, like, is that the only, she asked me, oh, you have become a county commissioner. Is that what other level are you thinking of becoming? What else do you want to become? And I thought that was a very odd question from a village woman, but she just said what came into her mind. And I was mentored by her because that made me think, like, what else do I want to do? Because when I was 20 and I was a county commissioner, the whole world was looking up to me and I felt great. And I didn't feel that I needed to go beyond at that point. But she pointedly asked me, what is it that I want to do besides what I'm doing now? Mm-hmm. So yeah, so and when I was a county commissioner, people would come and tell me on my face, like, what you did was wrong. We don't like it. It has had like a horrible impact. And that has been extremely useful for me because that mentored me, because I realized that what I do, everything I do has an impact. And I need to be careful about this. And then mentoring is super important in what we do. In the model that I mentioned, the women in a group, they mentor each other. We ask that the chair mentor other young women to become leaders. And for instance, in one group, was the first group that we started, the woman has mentored 5 other groups. And actually, I took a bunch of these rural women from Azerbaijan to the EU, to Brussels. The EU has an annual event called EU Development Days, and they were taking part in a conference. And at that time, I can admit it now, my manager said, why are you bringing a bunch of rural women who don't even speak the language? I mean, this is a high level conversation. The director of Microsoft, the vice president of UBS, what do rural women have to say? And the discussion was, believe me, on how to empower rural women. And there was no rural woman on the panel. And so the head of the panel, who happened to be representing Yorkshire as an MEP, she turned around and she said, who are these women? Each group has its own colored scarf. They have mottos and logos and stuff like that. She said, why are you here? She said, we are here because we are the rural women you're talking about. She said, what do you want? And you know what they asked her? She said, we want opportunities. We don't want charity. If you empower one of us, we will empower 10 others. So every woman in the group is a mentor, and mentoring is very, very important to really developing the groups, because it's not just about business, it's about leadership, it's about supporting each other. And it's not just when they are doing business, if there's a death, if there's an illness, the women are there for you. My own sister-in-law recently passed away, and when my husband said it was during COVID, so all of us couldn't fly, he went back. And the woman in the business group that she belonged to, 15 of them came, and they said that we really miss her because she made such a difference to our lives. And he said that made him so happy to hear that. So yes, mentoring is super important.
Very important. Ekhlas, would you like to talk a little bit about mentoring and the value of that as you have worked in empowering women?
Definitely agree with everything that you said. Mentoring it's I think one of those things that we were talking at the beginning. I feel like it's one of those essential things for survival, even just as a human. Not even running a business or running a nonprofit. It's just as a human. I feel like having a mentor helps in so many ways. And for me, the mentors that I have had since the beginning of my high school, like I was saying earlier, they have helped me find this voice and look look at how far that has gotten me. They helped me find a voice, and I've never stopped using that voice to advocate for myself, to advocate for my family, and to advocate for my community here in Portland, to advocate for my countries. I advocate for Sudan, I advocate for America on a daily basis. So that is, from just one woman who has empowered me, who has mentored me, is now helping me also empower other women and other girls in my community. So it definitely goes a long way. And I think sometimes people think being a mentor means there is an agenda or there's a specific thing that you have to do to mentor. But it is, to me, it has been just sitting and talking about anything and everything, or even holding the space. I think that is something that has worked for me for a long time, that I continue to do today in my nonprofit, that you sit in silence. But that silence is not an empty space. It's holding a lot. It's holding a lot of, difficult conversations that people are not ready to have yet, or holding a space for something that is so secretive. So for me, having mentors have really helped me survive, and I hope to continue being a mentor to the women and the girls in my family and in my community, because I want them to see them living their best life like I am.
Great. And Kristen, we have one last question.
We do, actually. It's a statement from Parivash Rahani, who states, would like to say, in Baha'i scripture emphatically states that women will be the greatest factor in establishing universal peace and international arbitration. So it will come to pass, it states, that when women participate fully and equally in the affairs of the world, when they enter confidently and capably in the great arena of law and politics, war will cease, for women will be the obstacle and hindrance to it. So I really appreciated that beautiful statement.
What a nice way to end our evening here today, by that great statement. And also to thank both of you for your willingness to participate in this International Women's Day celebration by speaking your mind and sharing with us your knowledge and all of the different things that you have done to help empower women. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to the audience for the great questions and their participation. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Ekhlas, and everybody in your organization that has helped to set this up.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a few.
For sure.
Finally end, we do have a few door prizes here, and for those participants that are still with us. And we have Partners for World Health hosts a fundraiser at Christmas time of international handicrafts that we pick up at our medical mission. So we've gathered quite a few things here. And so we have this evening, we're going to pull 4, and this one is from Peru. So we will pull a name out of the basket. And this one will go to Laura Merton. Laura Merton is one of our volunteers here at Partners for World Health. And then we have this turquoise necklace, also from Peru. Joey, why don't you pull the next one? And this one is going to Mary Floyd, who's a registered nurse that volunteers here at Partners for World Health as well. Let's see what else we have. A basket here from Uganda. We actually bring back many baskets from Uganda to make them available in the in our handicraft show. Pamela Fisher. She's a member of our board of directors here at Partners for World Health. And this is a silk scarf from Vietnam. So one more. Margaret Ferguson. So we will make sure that these are available for pickup here at Partners for World Health, or we'll find your address and we'll mail them off to you. So before we end, I do want to again thank all of our sponsors that were very, very supportive of this event this evening, and also to thank both of you for sharing your time and your knowledge about women in the world and how we can empower them. And we really appreciate it. Thank you also to all of the audience who asked questions and who stayed with us and listened. And thank you especially to Kristen, who's helped organize this digital webinar, which we really appreciate. If there aren't any other questions, I look forward to following up with other people and definitely following up with both of you. And I really want to shake your hand someday when it's real and we can do that. And I'm sure that there can be some opportunities that we could partner together in some of these other countries with these things that both of you represent. So thank you very much for being with us tonight. And thank you all to the audience as well. My thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.